Hey guys, what's going on? Blaine back for another Netflix review, and today I'm going to be talking about Yes Day. Right off the bat, the movie hammers the theme and the message behind the word yes right into your face. It opens with a narration from the lead character Allison, who's played by Jennifer Garner, and she talks about all of these experiences that she had, regardless of whether or not she was apprehensive of them, by simply saying yes to them. If she was invited on an expedition to go traveling, she would say yes. If she was invited to go skydiving, she would say yes. There was pretty much nothing that she wouldn't do. And eventually she meets her husband Carlos, who's played by Edgar Ramirez, who's also of a similar nature. He just loves to try a bunch of new things, and the two get along well in that respect, to the point that they fall in love and they get married and have kids. Once they start a family together and have kids though, they start saying no a lot more because they have to be negative in response to their kids' demands. And they use the word no under the guise that it's simple parenting and they can't do everything that their children want them to do. Allison in particular seems to be the parent that's regarded as the bad cop, whereas Carlos is more leaning toward the good side of things. In fact, it's not long until into the movie that Allison and Carlos are invited to a parent-teacher meeting for one of their kids, Nando, and he apparently made a video that was less than flattering as far as his overall opinion on his mom was concerned. But it's not just Nando who has these same opinions, it's also his older sister Katie, who wants to go on a concert by herself, but the mom wants to go with her, and as a result, she no longer has any interest in going. The kids basically want more independence from their family members and not have to worry about their parents dotting on them so much. After the meeting takes place, Allison and Carlos are talking about it with each other, and then it leads into what I think is the dumbest setup for a premise I've ever seen in a movie. There's a guidance counselor at the school who happens to be eating tater tots in the cafeteria's kitchen, and he opens the door and he says, "Hey, do you want a hot tot?" And the parents reluctantly accept his invitation to go into the kitchen, understandably so, and this leads to a discussion that involves the concept of the yes day. The parents are asking him advice as to how they could rein in their kids better, and the counselor tells them that he uses a yes day to reward his kids for good behavior. And I just found myself really dumbfounded by the whole setup. I mean, we have two parents in a kitchen talking to a weird guidance counselor who's eating tater tots, and then all of a sudden the yes day concept comes way out of nowhere. Anyway, the parents hem and haw over it for a bit, and then they come to an agreement with their children, they make bets, and then the movie kicks off from there. It's basically a family-friendly version of the Jim Carrey movie Yes Man. There's nothing really in the way in terms of bad language or sexual innuendo or anything like that, so this is very much a family-oriented movie. And I like that they took a cleaner approach to this story as opposed to Yes Man or other yes-related movies for that matter. It feels like there's been a ton of yes movies that have come out in recent years. So in this sense, the movie isn't 100% original, but then again, no movie is 100% original these days. What does make this movie stand out from all the other yes movies in recent years is that it has something called the 5 big asks. These 5 big asks are something that Nando comes up with to add on to their yes day, where the parents have to do everything that the kids want them to, and they can't say no. And on top of all that, they have to do the 5 things that are on that ask list so that they can consider their yes day a success. And these 5 big asks on his list range from relatively mundane to completely over the top. I think my favorite scenario out of his list was the one where they went on a reality TV show and started a big water balloon fight, or a Kool-Aid fight if you will. I don't know how the kids did this, but they managed to invite hundreds of people to this park, and they gather them all together under the guise that they're going to participate in some sort of bachelorette-like reality show, but it ends up being a game show where the objective is to take 2 flags from opposing teams in order to win the game. There's a lot of classic physical gags that happen in this scenario. Whether you're a kid or an adult, it never gets old to see people getting pelted in the face by water balloons. And you can tell all the actors had a lot of fun on the set whenever they were performing in that particular scene. And after that event is all said and done, it goes to being a little bit more on the corny side whenever Carlos tries to put a baby crow back in its nest, and he gets assaulted by a ton of other crows and gets sent to the hospital because of that. And when I saw that scene, I was like, what? How do you get sent to the hospital for being pecked by crows? There's a lot of corny stuff that happens in this movie in general that just brings the point home that it's not really meant for adults to watch by themselves anyway. It's definitely kid-oriented in terms of its presentation, and you can tell by watching it, though to be honest, I don't know how many kids would laugh at all the gags that are present in here. I don't know, I just thought some of the characters in this movie behaved really weird compared to how I thought they would act. Of course it's a kids movie, so you can't take much seriously to begin with, but some of the words that came out of their mouths dialogues were just really weird and left me scratching my head. Like when Katie ends up going to the concert and Allison tries to look for her and she's getting driven to the concert by a police officer and she's like, "Do you know where you're going?" And he says something like, "Oh yeah, I hope so. This is my first time driving this police car." I was like, dude, you're a police officer. You're supposed to be trained in everything that comes with the job, including the police car, and you're telling us that you don't know how to drive it, or that it's your first time driving it? There's also a weird scene involving a paramedic or ambulance driver or something like that. And anyway, she's driving the family to Magic Mountain Park so that they can cross off what's next on their big ask list. And the driver says something to the effect of, "If I get called on a job, I have to leave you on the side of the road." Again, it's a kid's movie, so a lot of the dialogue is going to be silly to begin with, so you can't really take it that seriously. There was one scene that did bother me quite a bit though. Near the beginning, the whole family's having breakfast in the kitchen, and the kids are getting ready to go to school, and the youngest daughter, Ellie, starts twerking to a song while the dad, Carlos, is going, "Yeah, go Ellie, woo!" And I was like, what? How are you cheering this on? Why is this happening in front of me? This child is 6 years old. Why is she twerking on camera? That scene just felt really weird and out of place for me. There was no reason for that kid to do something with that kind of connotation behind it on camera. I just felt that scene was very out of place and shouldn't have been filmed. All that silly stuff aside, however, I do like how upbeat the movie is in general. There's just a very happy tone with how it's presented overall, especially with the soundtrack. There are also quite a few heartwarming moments in this movie as well, and it usually revolves around Katie, specifically whenever she's at the concert and she just wants to go back home to her family. And you really get a sense of how the relationship between parent and child straightens over the course of the story. They start getting closer to each other as the story progresses and they're doing more fun things together, and then drama ends up coming halfway between, and then we're back to square one. Katie starts to think of the yes day as some sort of way for the parents to control their behavior and stop them from doing the things that they really want to do. And eventually we see Katie start to shirk her responsibility of being the oldest sibling in the house whenever the parents start experiencing some shenanigans and they're eventually left away from the house, not able to watch their kids. I won't say what happens in that particular instance just for fear of avoiding spoilers, but I thought that aspect was pretty well done in the way it was presented. Part of me really wants to criticize this movie just in how it has so much cringeworthy humor that I can't personally relate to because I'm not a child, but then again I have to remind myself that because I'm not a child, this movie isn't necessarily made for me in mind. It's definitely a movie that you have to watch with a family in mind, or if not a family, then at least with a group of people. And if you just want to find a movie that's relaxing and you want to have a good time and not think about it too much, then this movie would be right up your alley. I have to say that there are a lot of fun scenarios that come out of the big ask list. If that concept wasn't in the movie, then I don't think this movie would have worked out as well as it did. And while I still think the movie is ultimately forgettable and pretty cringeworthy and as far as its humor is concerned, it's not really all that bad either. You don't stand anything to lose from watching it. This movie is a family film through and through, and it plays up that aspect to a T. So if you're looking for something fun and laid back to watch with your kids, then this movie is definitely for you. Anyways guys, that's gonna wrap up my review of Yes Day. Thanks for watching this video, I hope you enjoyed it, and as always stay tuned for the next part, where next time I review the Turkish film Paper Lives. Bye bye!